Waters World has been covering the Jeffrey Epstein case since his arrest and death in 2019. From our reporting this year, we were able to confirm a pretty big bombshell. Former President Bill Clinton was spotted on Pedophile Island in the company of 2 underage girls. And just recently, Bill Clinton's former body man and aide, Doug Band, who worked for Clinton for 30 years, confirmed our story to Vanity Fair that Bill Clinton spent time on Epstein's Island in 2003 and 2006. In January 2003, according to Doug Band, Clinton visited Epstein's private Caribbean island. Band said it was one of the few trips he declined to go on in his time with Clinton. A guest told Waters World that Bill Clinton was also having an affair with Epstein's alleged accomplice and longtime madam, Giselle Maxwell, and that he had traveled on Epstein's plane at least 24 times. It's been almost 6 months since Maxwell was arrested. Prosecutors say she was crucial in the torture that Epstein inflicted on countless girls. Maxwell would help lure the underage, some poverty-stricken girls in by offering them piles of cash in exchange for massages for Epstein. Some of these girls were held against their will. Maxwell went from living in lavish mansions to a Brooklyn jail cell. She's pleaded not guilty to helping Epstein recruit and groom underage girls and to perjury for having denied involvement under oath. Last week, Maxwell pleaded with the judge to take almost $30 million in cash and assets so she could be released from jail until her trial in July next summer. But prosecutors say Maxwell remains an extreme flight risk. Last year, I spoke with a private investigator who was hired by attorney Brad Edwards, who represents some of the victims. Mike Fiston is a former Miami homicide detective with over 30 years on the job. He was able to speak with some of Epstein's former pilots, one of whom detailed President Clinton's involvement with Epstein. Listen. When you were tasked by one of these victims' attorney to look into Epstein, you interviewed some of his private pilots. What did you find?
Well, that was the most interesting part. When I started trying to contact his pilots, of course, his first pilot, who's his most dedicated pilot, wouldn't talk to us. We knew he wouldn't because he's basically in cahoots with Jeffrey, but we were able to find his co-pilots. And I'll never forget sitting in this guy's living room up in this really nice area of Wellington, Florida, and talking to him. And he's telling me, I can't tell you anything. I really want to, but I can't. And I look over his shoulder and I see there's a picture of him and his 3 daughters. And I said, look at your daughters. They could have been victims. And the guy started tearing up and he started talking. And basically he said, listen, I flew the plane. I flew it all over the world. But I was never allowed to really leave the cockpit. I knew there was bedrooms back there. I knew that there was girls that shouldn't have been on the plane that were there. And I couldn't leave the cockpit to go back and look or I would get fired. But he did tell me some interesting stories. I mean, you know, Jesse, he told me about the stewardesses on the plane would be very young girls. I mean, he couldn't tell me if they were 15, 16, 17, or 18. He just didn't know their ages, but they were very young, definitely not over 18.
And Bill Clinton was on those flights
numerous times. And why these girls were dressed, he would describe them as candy stripers. And
so you're saying on the flights that Bill Clinton was on with Jeffrey Epstein, the stewardess or stewardesses, many of them were underage, were dressed as candy stripers.
Correct.
And there were beds in the back of the plane?
Beds, bedroom, yes.
Was there Secret Service there, or was Hillary there on that flight, or those flights? There were 26 flights, apparently.
Hillary never flew on the plane that we knew of. She was never recorded on going on a plane, and no one's ever seen her on the plane. His daughter was never with him. The Secret Service was with him on most of the occasions, but there were occasions where there was no Secret Service listed as going on the flights with him.
Wow. Unbelievable. All right, you also know about this little black book that had all of the contacts of Epstein, and that was used as leverage for a payoff by one of his workers at his estate. Did you ever get a look at the black book, or how did that come out?
So myself and Brad Edwards got a phone call one day from this guy named Alfredo Rodriguez, who was the caretaker, or like the butler at the mansion. And he called us and said, I got something I want to show you. It will blow your case out of the water. It will reveal everything that Jeffrey's doing with underage girls, and you'll be able to put him in prison for life. Well, of course, we wanted this book more than anything, but he wanted $50,000 for the book.
Right.
Because he said, after I give this to you, I got to flee. So obviously we couldn't pay him, and we tried everything to get him to turn it over to us. And when that failed, we had to contact the FBI, and we did a sting where we went in and pretended we were going to buy the book, and he delivered it to us, and he was arrested. And that's how we got the book.
All right.
The journal.
Right. And we've seen the journal, and we're going through it. And the guy who tried to set this deal up with the black book, the worker at Epstein's estate, is dead.
He's dead, and he did more time in jail for giving us the evidence of this guy's pedophile empire than Jeffrey did in jail for sexually assaulting over 100 underage girls.
100? Wow.
Over 100.
All right. Well, Mike, listen, great job. On deck, NFL Hall of Famer